Welcome to my channel. My name is Logan, and today we're going to build this beautiful farmhouse style table. If you like what you see, please subscribe and like the video so I can keep producing more free content. Here I'm cutting the 4x4s down to their actual size, not the approximate size. The tabletop pieces I will cut down to their approximate size because, as you'll see in the video, I'm going to cut off the ends with a circular saw. I usually cut them about 4 or 5 inches longer than they need to be. I'm just running the 4x4s through the planer. Saves me time on sanding, and I can make sure they're square, which makes them easier to go into the half lap joints that I'm making for the base. If you don't have a planer, you can obviously give them a lot of sanding. I have a planer, so like I said, that's how I squared them up. Getting rid of the rounded over edges, it just makes them fit into the large dados that I cut. You can see there, that's the planed down version of a 4x4. I actually put that across the 2 leg pieces, so I have the exact width of the piece that's going to fit into it, the mating piece. And you can see there what I'm doing. I'm just cutting out the half lap joint or dado joint. And with a circular saw, I just went over it with several passes. Obviously I didn't show every single pass, but I went over it with several passes. There's the center brace and the 2 legs. And circular saws leave a ton of dust, so I had to stop multiple times and vacuuming it up in between. And this is the most fun part of cutting those joints. It takes a little time to get them out, but I just keep hitting them with my mallet hammer and pull them all out. It's lots of fun. That was probably the messiest part of the entire project. And I couldn't get every single piece. I've seen some people do it where they run the circular saw side to side, and that does work as well. I just chose to use a chisel, and then I ran over it with a small hand plane to flatten it up. And that's what they look like after they're all cleaned up. Make sure you put plenty of glue in those joints. You don't want them to have any sort of wiggle. You just want them to have a nice snug and secure fit. And sorry for delaying on putting this video out. I've been sick. I have a cold, as you may be able to tell, and it seems to just linger on, so it's while I'm starting to feel better now, but it's still here a little bit. Now with those pieces, you're just going to attach them together after they're all glued up. There's the centerpiece and the 2 leg pieces, which are cut to 28.5 inches. That'll give the tabletop a 30-inch height once you add the tabletop on, which is 1.5 inches. So there's 2 legs and a centerpiece. You just fit them all together with the dado face up to allow for the cross piece that's going to go the whole length of the table pretty much. And that's why I planned them. I want to have everything to the exact length. All pieces of the table base are going to be the same width, so they fit into the grooves correctly. And I'm standing them up and just gluing them together. That's the table base assembled. I put pieces across the top of the table base so I can attach the tabletop to it. Here I'm just cutting down the 2x6 material. I'm cutting them down to 4.5 inches, making sure the ends are squared off and straight and flat. I used 4 of those 2x6s and attach them in sections of 9 inches. That allows me to run them through the planer to make sure they're cleaned up. This again was construction material, and you can see how dirty it is right there. This was in their throwaway pile at a construction site. Here I'm just marking for the biscuits to attach them together. I'm just using glue and biscuits. I'm using Titebond 2 glue initially. I'll eventually use Titebond 3 for the entire tabletop to allow me more time for the glue to dry. The biscuit joint is a pretty fun tool. It's not that messy when you have a vacuum attached up to it. It's really not messy at all. Nothing compared to the circular saw. Make sure you use plenty of glue and try to clean up the squeeze out as much as possible. It's not as big of a factor because it's still going to go through the planer, but when you assemble the entire tabletop, that will not be able to fit through the planer, and I clean that up as much as possible. I also attached pieces of wood going the width of the table to make it as flat as possible, and you want to make sure there's no glue squeeze out that'll actually glue the pieces of wood to the tabletop. Biscuit joinery is actually really simple. Anybody can do it. You just have to make sure you make the marks and hit the biscuit with it. Now those are dried and planed, and now I'm attaching the entire tabletop. I think I'm using about 7 or 8 biscuits for each section. I didn't put them a certain width apart. I just randomly went down and drew them across with a construction T-square, and then attached biscuits in those areas. Again, using plenty of glue and making sure it's on both faces that I'm joining together. The biscuits give the table an overall, just helps it to be more flat and also a little more secure as well. And you want to push that table together as tight as possible. My tabletop did not have any gaps in it, any visible gaps at all. And once you get the tabletop together, you cannot run it through the planer, so you want to make sure that you clean up as much glue squeeze out as possible. I still did run over it with a hand plane, as well as sanded the tabletop with 120 grit, 150, and 220 to get it as flat as possible. On the legs of the tabletop, of the legs for the table, I just used 2 grits of sandpaper, 120 and 220. It's just going to be painted because that's what was wanted. And you can see I configured the tabletop just to make it as flush as possible to each other, so the edges of the table are going to be uneven at this point, and I'm going to go over that with a circular saw in just a moment and straighten that out. The tabletop width is 36 inches and the length is going to be 60 inches before putting the breadboard ends on. And you'll see that I'm going to I don't have any long clamps, so I'm attaching a 30-inch clamp down to a 12-inch clamp. I do have 2 48-inch bar clamps, and then I clamped everything to the table as well. I'm not showing the breadboard ends being put on, but I did that the same way, just with biscuits and edge gluing. Here I'm making the straight edge to cut the tabletop length down to 60 inches before adding the breadboard ends. And this is a fun project to do. This is my first tabletop build of this size, and it's a lot of fun. It takes a lot of time, but it is fun. You definitely need a flat surface to be able to do it in order to lay the tabletop across. My floor is uneven in my garage, so I use it on my tabletop. Here's where I'm putting the straight edge piece down to guide the circular saw. And I put some braces on the bottom just to give it a little extra security, and then I put some 3/4 inch pine all the way around the perimeter of the table, and I'm just making that flush with my router and a flush trim bit. That covers the board that attaches the table legs to the base, and also gives it a little thicker of a feel and look. Here I'm putting on the Danish oil. It's Watco Danish oil, dark walnut. I put 2 coats on, and the tabletop is not attached. You can see it wobbling now. It's not even, and my floor is not even in the garage as well. I'm just putting 2 coats on. Then I'm going to put 4 or 5 coats of polyurethane on, sanding in between, and you'll have a pretty nice looking product after it's all done. Again, the legs will be painted white. I believe they were China white is the color that I used, and it gives it a nice contrast with the dark top of the table. And the polyurethane will give it a nice shine on the tabletop. I hope everyone enjoyed the table. The finished product will come up here shortly. It was a fun project, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And my daughter wanted to be part of the video, so here's her part. She wanted to give a couple words.
And subscribe. Every 100 subscribers, my dad will buy me a new toy.
Alright, now one more time.
Okay, just practice though.